하지만 alright 너가도 alright.
Hi guys, it's Angela Kim from thesquishymonster.com, and today I'm sharing with you my recipe for the most soft, tender, and moist scones. These make for the most flavorful and buttery ones, and I'm going to show you step by step all my secrets and tips. The first thing I want to do is bring together all of my dry ingredients. So in my large bowl here, I've just got some unbleached flour and some sugar, and I'm going to sprinkle in there some baking powder so it'll rise up and be puffy, and salt to offset all that sweetness, and a little bit of cream of tartar. And I'm just going to mix it all to combine. Trick number one is to use ice cold butter. So I've taken my sticks of butter and popped them both into the freezer, and I'm going to grate it just like I did in my fluffy, soft, and delicious biscuit video. If you want to check that out, I'm going to shave the butter with the grater into my dry mixture, just directly into it so the butter curls underneath, and we're just going to mix it all together when it's done. Once you've grated in all your butter, you can just gently give it a toss, just so all the butter gets tossed and coated with that flour and sugar and mixture. And you just want to gently give it a toss and pop this whole entire thing into the freezer so that it keeps chilled. That's another tip. Tip number two is to keep everything chilled. So all the components I'm actually adding into my bowl later on, those are going to be cold as well. It's really important that you don't overwork your dough. Tip number three. So just gently toss, and that's all about you need right there. And I'm going to pop this into the freezer while I work on my other cold ingredients. So these are my wet ingredients, and first up I have my whole milk sour cream, and full fat dairy really lends a nice luxurious texture when you're baking. So to that I'm going to sprinkle in some baking soda, and this is going to help tenderize things. So this is tip number four, the soda directly into the dairy. And just give it a mix, and you'll see those bubbles activating everything, and it's really going to puff up and make that baking soda really light. So as that's working, it just needs to sit for a moment before we add in our cold egg. And I know, contrary to the fact that you need to use room temperature ingredients that I'm always stressing in every other of my videos, here you're gonna need to use cold. So it's really, really important that everything's cold. I just want to stress again. This is going to go into my baking soda mixture, but before that, let's talk about our pumpkin. So I show you in one of my videos how to make homemade pumpkin puree. It just tastes so much better. So to that, I'm going to sprinkle in some homemade pumpkin spice. And again, that'll be listed below and at thesquishymonster.com. So I'm just going to set that aside and work on my sour cream and egg mixture. And already you can see it's really lightened everything up and made everything puffy. And now I'm just going to slip in my cold egg. Now we just have to pour our smaller bowls into our larger bowl. So to my ice cold butter and my flour mixture, I want to scrape in my sour cream and egg and baking soda mixture. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's really, really kind of foamy, like a mousse. And that's what that baking soda did as soon as it was activated by that baking powder. And then we're going to scrape in our pumpkin. That pumpkin and that homemade pumpkin spice. And this step is also very important. I'll just reiterate. It'll be very tempting to overwork this dough, but please don't. You want to mix just until all the streaks are gone and all the dry has been incorporated by the wet. And it'll be pretty much of a stiff dough at first, but just be patient with it and just be mindful you don't want to overextend those glutens. So over mixing is your enemy. So just go in there and mix just to combine. Here's my dough after a few moments. I really haven't mixed too much, and you can still see it's kind of roughly shaping into a dough ball, but it's very kind of clumpy, and you see pockets of butter, which is a fabulous thing because when it hits that heat in the oven, it'll sizzle and steam away. That's what causes that flakiness in the scone. So you don't want to overwork it, just as long as you can pick up little pieces here and there and it just kind of clumps together. What I like to do is use either Silpat, or you can just tape down some wax or parchment, and that's like the easiest way for me to work with it as a work surface anyways, but you can do whatever you want. You can just dust on some flour or oil a board. But as you've noticed, up until this point, I have not used my hands at all because your fingers radiate heat. That's another tip. You don't want to melt what you've taken the time to kind of freeze and get really, really cold. So this is gonna be the quickest step of all. You wanna be super quick with this so you don't melt anything and you don't bring anything to room temperature. So you just wanna gather your dough and move it around and just press it together. Just pick him up, press it together. So it kind of looks like a rough, lumpy pillar of sorts. It's kind of like a cylinder shape at this point. You just want to press and lump the dough together. And this is why I love my Silpat, because it's non-stick, so I can just pick it up as I need to and work with it as I need, because any extra flour that you introduce into this dough will create a more denser and drier product, and you don't want that. These are going to be for very moist scones. So I've pressed it together, and now I just want to take the heel of my palm and just press it down. You want a rough circular shape. You want to flatten that cylinder that you built up. For my cookie sheet, I like one that's flat without any lips or edges that curl up on the edges, just so that it redistributes the heat and recirculates it well and evenly. And this used to be a light color. When you're baking, I highly recommend using a light color. It's just what works for me. Every baker, every cook is going to find what works best for him or her. And I like one that's double insulated like this. It's just sturdy, and I've had this one for I think 13 years, and I still use it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm just going to lift one of my scones up, and I'm just going to place it on a really well-greased surface. So I just misted it over twice with some cooking spray, and that's all I did. So my scones are out of the oven, and they are cooling on a cooling rack. So I want them to be slightly warm to absorb this really easy glaze, but I don't want them to be piping hot either, or it'll just slip right off. So to make this easy glaze, I just have a little bit of sweetened condensed milk that I'm going to sprinkle with some pumpkin spice. Lastly, I'm just sifting in some powdered sugar, some sifted confectioners sugar or icing sugar, whatever you want to call it, and then I'll give it another twirl and it'll be ready to use as my glaze. Here are one of my glazed scones, and they're still a little warm, so they've soaked up all of that yummy sticky glaze. And it's golden brown and it's soft and tender, and I just wanted to break it apart so you guys could see the center of it. And inside reveals that gorgeous golden amber color from all the pumpkin, and it's so moist and buttery and soft and so flavorful. I so hope you guys give this a try, and if you like this video, please don't forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. This is Angela Kim from thesquishymonster.com, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!